interest, which is on July 27th, the Equality Chamber is going to have a mega networking job fair. And so it's really an opportunity for community members to come together to network and also
What happened?
I think she was disconnected.
Motoko, you're on silent.
Sorry, I think we lost Nin's.
Here she is.
Yes, I think she got disconnected.
Motoko, you're on silent.
I am not.
I'm sorry, I got kicked out for some reason.
Sorry, can you not hear me?
We can hear you, Chair Ozawa.
Okay,
We can
thank
hear
you. Thank you. Sorry. And so
And-
is
and-
everybody
and-
back on?
She was briefly back on and now she kicked out. She's kicked back off. Oh, here she is. I'm sorry. Here she is. Sorry.
Okay.
Yes, I'm
So
back on, Chair. So I'm not
Yes.
sure where we lost me.
You were talking about the Equality Chamber, the mega working fair.
Mega networking job fair.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, so yes, that's on July 27th at 4 p.m. at the MLK. So my understanding is that it's really meant to be a big networking event for folks to get to know other organizations, what they're doing, and also learn about job opportunities that may exist at the various organizations, and OHR will be there. So we'll encourage you to attend that event if you're available, and I will also drop a link to that event in the chat as well. And I think that concludes my updates. I probably took up enough time, but if there are any questions, please feel free to let me know.
Thank you very much. I just want to acknowledge the work of the Rules Committee that helped provide drafting and review of various sections that went into the Fairness and Human Rights Administration Amendment Act. Is that correct, Director Kyne? It went through the emergency rulemaking, right? And parts of that are reflected in that act, Amendment Act, is that correct?
I'm not sure that's
Okay.
the case, but perhaps Andrea could chime in if she knows.
I read through it, and it looked like it had quite a good correspondence with what we had worked on. But if that is not the case, then I guess I would like to understand what was the impetus for this particular Amendment Act. But perhaps, Andrea, you can demystify us.
Sure, and I think we may be talking about a couple different things. So the
Okay.
Fairness in Human Rights Administration Act is it was a bill that was introduced by Councilmember Nadeau 2 terms ago, and then it never got voted on. So therefore, at the conclusion of the last council period last December, it died. So she reintroduced it in the spring, and it is not going to have a hearing on it until this fall. But it is actually pretty separate from anything that we have done with the rules. That we're still working with the council member on it exactly, but kind of some of the highlights is that it would not make clear. I think it would mandate, I guess, that in public sector cases, so cases against the DC government, that if they went through our processes, and they were successful, they would be entitled to attorney's fees and compensatory damages. Because as of now, they are only entitled to those types of damages and attorney's fees if they take their claim to court, not if they go through the commission. There's also another provision of it that would allow the removal of complaints to courts at any period whatsoever in our processes. We have some concerns about that, because that would also potentially mean how it's written, that it could go all the way through and have a commission finding, not just a NPC on us, but it could go all the way through that there's actually a commission order, and then they still could go straight to novo. So we certainly will have some feedback about it, but it is a bit different from what we were doing on the emergency rulemaking. And I
Thank
can
you.
provide more details on it next time in September.
Thank you so much for that clarification. And I realize so now that is focused on public sector cases. And I guess I saw a lot of parallel or some parallels with what we were working on. But thank you for that clarification. So are there any questions for Director Kine? Comments, discussions? Hearing none, thank you for that report, and we look forward to the augmented report in September on the legislative updates. And with that, I guess we're now ready to move to the report of the Chief ALJ, Erica Pearson. Erica, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, the floor is
I'm
yours.
Here, and I have made it back home now, so I'm
Oh, congratulations.
at the computer, and we are recording now as well.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
All right, so I only have a few updates. I think we already mentioned that the reappointments and the appointments for the new commissioner have been moved to September. Originally, it was going to be July 13th, and they just weren't able to. That's going to be the last session before council goes on break. And they just weren't able to get everything in before the break. So we don't have a date in September yet, but it'll be, probably one of the first meetings when they come back from the summer break for the council. But I did give you the bios for the 3 new commissioners because they were published last month in the DC Register. So they're all public information now. So those were in your attachments if you want to learn about the 3 new commissioners that will be coming on. I just to let you know that I attended the conference for the National Employment Lawyers Association back 2 weeks ago in Chicago. It was a really, really good conference and had a lot of really good resources. And so what I will also do is share with you a copy of the agenda from that meeting. So if there are any particular, there were over like 600 pages worth of handouts that we were given. So if anybody's interested in a particular topic and would like a copy of that material, I'm happy to send you copies. But there was a lot of really good information about some recent case law updates. And I think, hopefully in the coming months, we can do a training among the commission to talk about some of those cases that have come out of different jurisdictions in the last year. So that was really useful information. And then I, also met several commissioners from other states. And it was sort of interesting to learn that a lot of these commissions have been kind of defunct. Particularly, I was speaking to some people from New York. I mean, that it's so very politically charged that as the administration has changed in different places, it's either priority to their mayor or it's not a priority to the mayor. And so, for example, they were saying New York is just not given any priority to their Human Rights Commission. They've completely slashed their budget, cut their staff, and they have not adjudicated any cases in the last 2 years. So that, and they at one point were very much kind of a leader in getting cases out in this area. So that was interesting to learn also kind of what's going on with some commissions in other jurisdictions. Coming up August 13th to 17th, again, is the IORA conference. That's the International Association of Official Human Rights Agencies. So it'd be great to have some of the DC commissioners being able to be present at that conference. I will be presenting at the conference. I'll be presenting on August 15th, and my presentation will be on adjudicating human rights complaints, and it's going to be geared for new commissioners who are recently appointed to various commissions. So I'd love to have see some of the commissioners out there. I think Andrea Nen already talked about the new bill that was in my report. And I'll just note there's only one thing in that bill that affects the commission. Most of the amendments are dealing with public sector cases. But the one amendment in that bill that does deal with private sector cases is that it would permit the commission to award punitive damages.
Hmm.
So right now you can only get punitive damages in a private sector case if you file a civil action in court, and the commission is not authorized to do that. So that's a huge amendment, if that were to pass, that the commission would be able to award punitive damages. And at least as of now, there's no cap being proposed on what those punitive damages could be. So that would be the one amendment that directly affects the role of the commission. For the Youth Ambassador Program, Ernest is going to come to the next commission. He's on vacation this week, so he couldn't come today, but he did offer to come to the next commission meeting to talk more directly with all of the commissioners about the Youth Ambassador Program and what he's doing and what the needs are. So we will definitely have him in September. And then looking at the commission case inventory, there are 18 cases pending. We have 2 cases in the pipeline for closure in probably the next 2 to 3 weeks. We haven't received any new cases since the last meeting. Case closure data has stayed the same since the last meeting. We do have very good news, which was our oldest case, which is the Cisco case, which Judge Ash's case, has settled. That was the case that we were going to have to retry the case because it was heard by Judge Simmons, but the case wasn't completed before Judge Simmons left. And there was just a lot of pushback from the parties when it came to trying to relitigate it, and it's been put off and put off and put off. But they did finally actually reach a settlement in that case. So that's one of the ones that's in the pipeline to be dismissed. They're just, I don't know if they filed their dismissal yet, Judge Ash? You're on mute.
Sorry, my mom's dog.
You're muted again.
Yes.
There you go.
Dog.
Oh, you're muting the dog.
Not my dog, unfortunately. What the question was, have they sought dismissal? Was that what you were saying?
Yeah, is it ready for dismissal or are they still finalizing?
Yes, it is. So they sent their, we had to follow up a couple of times, but they finally sent their private settlement agreement. I actually ordered them to attend private mediation because it was just a nightmare. And thankfully that worked out and they settled the case with retired Judge Bruce Lee. In any event, Gerald Bruce Lee. So we are headed to a tribunal on the 19th. That's when we have it scheduled.
Keep it. Great. So we have that one, and then we have another case that I mediated last week, and they reached a settlement, and they're just finalizing the terms. So as soon as they file their dismissal, both of those cases will be ready for tribunal. And then we have the Yay case also been ready for tribunal, and that will close. So that will be actually once we close Sesco and we close Yay, that will be the 2 oldest pending cases that the commission has that will finally be closed, which will definitely have a significant impact on just our data overall when we're looking at case aging and case pending, that those 2 cases were really, really affecting how that data was reflected on a monthly basis. So we're very excited to finally get those cases closed this month. But if anybody has any specific questions about the case inventory, happy to answer them.
Thank you so much for that report. And I just want to say kudos to all the judges who have been working so very, very hard for the last few months and weeks in particular. I had an occasion to sit through one of the hearings in which Judge Ash was hard at work. Thank you for your hard work and dedication. Any questions for Judge Pearson? Okay, hearing none. Actually, Judge Pearson, are you, okay, sorry. We are, yeah, you talked about the new commissioner, so I think we're good on that. So by the way, we probably won't have a hearing confirmation hearing before the next meeting. So, but I think we should still invite the new commissioners for the next meeting and look forward to getting to know them. So then I suppose that I can move to the my report, and I just have one quick report on Atlanta, as Director Kine mentioned. So this is the group called Human Rights Cities Leadership Group. They were here in Washington, D.C. last summer, and Director Kine and I and Mia, we were able to attend and hear their presentations. This year, the summit was took place in Atlanta, and Nobody Can OHR could attend. So I went to talk about our experience as the first human rights city in the nation, and to congratulate Atlanta for having become a human rights city. And so this summit was on the occasion of Atlanta becoming human rights city, and to discuss their the formidable challenges coming up. And as you can imagine, the topics really concerned Atlanta. The summit was also attended by a lot of advocacy organizations that advocated for all those issues. And so it was slightly different from what was expected. There were not too many represented from human rights organizations around the country. But nonetheless, I just found the topics really interesting. So I'll just briefly tell you what they are, what they were. Number one, reparations, which is also a topic of discussion in DC. Not surprisingly, a big chunk of the discussion focused on housing and right to housing, and also heated discussions on community safety and militarization of police in Atlanta in particular. And the closing plenary was looking into the future. What should these cities look like? And what are the possible programs that could support these cities in the future and their human rights? I have a detailed, sort of a detailed report on the proceedings, and the organizers are preparing detailed minutes. So if you're interested in delving into any of the issues, or knowing who spoke, and if you want to get in touch with any of those, or what are the potential literature and other resources quoted by the academia who were present at the meetings, please do let me know, and have a quick look at the note that I prepared. I guess there are a couple of sort of thematic things that are interesting. Obviously, we had a lot of discussions about the relationship between state level and local level human rights programs and how they relate to international framework. And there was a very strong sense that these international framework and laws and conventions are there to guide us as a North Star, as somebody said, but that human rights actually do not trickle from the top, but rise from the bottom through these initiatives, and innovations at the local level are really something that we should all focus on now. So while there are lots of international framework and resource information that was available, there was also some, I guess, some distance between the advocacy that is going on and these human rights framework. And the other thing that I wanted to just briefly mention is that there is a very strong sense of lived experience coalitions, communities, and participants who are invited to take part in the governance of these human rights activities. and especially in housing, but not necessarily limited to. And that's, I'm sure, is certainly the case in DC, but there is definitely a national movement for lived experience coalitions to be at the forefront of human rights discussions. So I just wanted to mention that. And as Director Kine already mentioned, you know, it's not necessarily perhaps the place for the commission to be represented in the future, but nonetheless, the discussions are quite relevant to Washington, D.C. overall. And so if you're interested, please let me know and I can provide additional information. So I'll stop there because other things that I want to talk about are covered in other parts of the agenda later on. So let me just pause here and see if there are any questions. I also would like to invite the organizers of the summit to perhaps come and speak to us in the future as guest speakers whenever we have a bit more space in our agenda. Adam, please.
I'm just wondering, did you observe or overhear any discussion at all related to voting rights in the district or our statehood campaign?
No, there was, from what I can tell, there was no discussion at the plenary. There were lots of breakout sessions, but I also do not recall that was discussed specifically. Thank you for that question. Anything else from anybody? If not, we will move to our next agenda item, which is new business. And the first one is on the mandatory training for the commissioners on the 23 traits. Tyler has kindly agreed to provide that training to the commissioners. I attended that training earlier, and I think that it will be very informative to all of us. So this is not limited to just the outreach committee members, but everybody. And I had earlier asked the commission whether they would prefer that that training take place immediately after the September training, meeting, or whether we should have that separately in October, perhaps the second Wednesday of October, whenever that date is, and starting at 6:30. I would imagine that it will take about an hour and a half with the presentations and case studies and Q&A. So is there any quick reaction from the commissioners on when the preferred date might be?
I like the idea of October. I think doubling up sounds like a pretty long night.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Quinn. So that is certainly a possibility. Sorry, who spoke next?
This is Robert. I was just saying I would second that, just to piggyback off of TJ.
Okay, great. Any other views?
I would just strongly urge us, as many of us as possible, to participate, because I have participated in the past and it's very informative, especially if any of us are interested, not just the outreach committee, but in helping other people in DC understand the 23 traits. That Tyler does a good job.
Yes, it's a very informative and in-depth training, but at the same time, right, it's not there to make us an overnight expert on DC Human Rights Act. It's to give us some grounding on the 23 traits, and also to be able to respond to some of the questions and how to do so in a way that would not provide any legal answers, right? But to help people perhaps understand that the members of the public achieve a slightly deeper understanding of the protections afforded by the DC Human Rights Act. So this is just to cover our grounds. So I'm hearing that October is a good date. So unless I hear otherwise from anybody, let us plan on that, and I'll be sure to organize that with Tyler for that particular date, whenever that is, the second Wednesday of October. Okay, the next point is the Youth Ambassador Program. We do need a commissioner to work with Ernest. Somehow that says Ernest Young, but that's probably not the right one. Anyway, that is the Youth Bullying Prevention Coordinator of OHR. And if there is a commissioner who is interested in volunteering to be the liaison with Ernest, please let me know now, or you can send me an email. I hope to have a name by September if we do not have a volunteer tonight.
Commissioner, I'd be happy to help, but I really think it would be valuable to have a younger person do it. Somebody maybe a third my age.
Oh, I don't think age is the issue, Karen, at all. But since you are so, you have other responsibilities, I think my strong desire is to see another volunteer from the commission who is not already involved in committee work. And this is an opportunity for somebody to get involved in a fresh initiative that I think is very exciting and very much needed. Okay, so I won't persist, but only to say, please volunteer. And I'm gonna skip the next item, which is on that new act, because I think we already covered that between Erica and Andrea. So we will move to the next item, which is the draft policy on public comments. Thank you very much, Judge Pearson, for your initiative in putting this policy together. Just to remind everybody, and those who are new probably don't know this, but we have had a very regular participant in public comments slot of the commission meeting agenda for years and years and years. That was a while ago. And we had a sort of a de facto rule at that time. But what Judge Pearson did is to formalize everything, taking inspirations from other jurisdictions that have explicit public comment policy. So I think that what got circulated is already in very good shape. I have some minor wordsmithing that I will provide later on, but I think it's in pretty good shape, and the gist of it is completely common sense. So I just want to open up for discussion to see if anybody had any questions, comments, suggestions, or proposed revisions to the draft policy. Okay, hearing no discussion. Would it be appropriate for me to say that there is a broad support for the draft and that the commission would be comfortable with some words being amended, but the general gist of the policy to be formalized? Yeah, okay.
Yes,
Yeah,
I agree.
Okay. So I don't think we need to vote on this formally, but I don't hear any objection. Is that correct? Okay, thank you very much. So I think we can move forward with this.
Yeah, so if anybody has, any edits they want or changes made, just feel free to email it to me, and maybe, in the next 2 weeks we get it finalized.
Thank you very much. Okay, any old business? I don't think we have anything under that heading, so we will move to committee reports. And the awards committee has a bit to report, so let me go ahead and start on that. So reminder everybody, the gala is December the 7th, that's Thursday. And the gala theme this year is on disability, and that is physical and mental disability. And the slogan is DC Human Rights Act, protecting and celebrating bodies and minds of all abilities. So please take note. The venue is the same as last year in the old DC Council chambers at 441 4th Street at Judiciary Square. We already have a caterer. We have the contract that is with NIN. And so all those have been finalized, thank goodness. And now we need to see the nominations come through. So I have circulated separately from Erica's emails a request for nomination, and that provides a detailed description of the three awards categories that we have. One is the usual Neil Alexander Award. We have the Emerging Leadership Award, and this year, as last year, we're going to have 3 slots, 3 awards under that category. This year, we're going to reserve one of those specifically for a student from DC Public School or a charter school. So that is a small amendment that we made. And the third one is a community award, as with last year. Again, we are looking for nominations that pertain to this year's gala theme. And we would very much appreciate nominations from the public. So if you could take the request for nomination and also the fillable form that Erica put together, which is very useful, and circulate that widely through your network and solicit nominations, that would be great. This year, we will be collaborating with 3 relevant DC agencies who have responsibility for these areas. So the Office of Disability Rights, Office of Deaf, Blind, and Hard of Hearing, and the Department of Behavioral Health. They have been notified of our gala and our theme, and they are keen to collaborate. They were invited to tonight's meeting, but it was a bit of a short notice. So we might have some representatives from these agencies in September. We shall see. But it's wonderful to be able to collaborate with these agencies. Let's see, the deadline for receiving the nominations is July the 31st. And the awards committee is meeting on August the 1st to decide, so that we have all the awardees lined up before people take the rest of August off. And we're all ready to order awards and plaques and be ready. So that is the timing. And Commissioner Quinn, you have a question.
Yes, I just wanted to understand the reasoning for limiting the youth award with a specific category to students who attend DC public or charter schools as opposed to private schools.
Judge Pearson, do you want to take that question?
Well, it was just, I don't know that it was anyone recommended or discussed, specifically private schools. The discussion that the awards committee had was just really wanting to encourage to recognize youth who are doing something. And so it seemed appropriate to reach out to our public schools. Thank you.
I think that's sort of consistent with what we're trying to do with the Human Rights Ambassador Program. Any other questions? Because I think I am pretty much finished on my reporting. And by the way, Maya has put out the request for nomination document as well as the fillable form on the OHR website. So that is available electronically. And you can forward that link to somebody if you have anybody who might be interested in making nominations. So I think that's really all that I needed to report on that. Awards committee members, did you have anything to add or supplement, please? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to move to the outreach committee. And here I just would like to invite everybody to perhaps spend a couple of minutes thinking about what the activities of the outreach committee should be. I have discussed this at length with Chair Mulhauser, who chairs that committee. I think it's the general understanding that we have tried, but perhaps we don't have a lot of achievements. And I think part of the reason why that committee had been sort of in a waiting mode is because it felt that it needed more training in order to be able to complement various OHR public meetings and activities so that we could be informed members or participants in those OHR events. But I have come to the conclusion that we will never be complete experts in this. In fact, it's not our role to be legal experts in the DC Human Rights Act or the 23 traits. And I think what we are really here for is to provide to the public the human faces behind the commission, right? And why we are here and what we do. And therefore, I think that our role should be slightly understood slightly differently by the outreach committee and by extension members of the public. So I just wanted to open up for discussion. If you have any specific recommendations on what the outreach committee should be focusing on, also what the leadership of that committee should look like. I have discussed with Chair Mulhauser, perhaps for her to share a co-leadership with another chair, co-chair of that committee. I think that I am pretty much open to any suggestions at this point because outreach is so important. It's one of our two major remits of the commission, right? In addition to being able to serve on tribunals. And so it's fundamental to us that we have a good functioning outreach committee. And so if there are any suggestions, comments, I would like to very much hear that now, or if you have any input that you would like to make privately, you're free to approach Commissioner Mulhauser or myself. But let me finish here and see if there are any discussions.
Yeah, I would just like to say thank you, Chair Osawa. The committee has, and maybe training was really not the right word, because I think we all do understand the 23 traits, protected traits, but sort of a better sense of what the Office of Human Rights would like an outreach committee to do, you know, what kind of input it should have in our DC community. And so it's wonderful that there will be an opportunity to have that kind of input from the Office of Human Rights, because and I totally agree with your description of the effort to just let the community, the DC residents, understand that there is an Office of Human Rights. And I think that all of us on the commission can reach out to the different communities in which we're involved to help inform them about the work of the Office of Human Rights. And what the 23 traits are and so forth. And you're right, we don't need to have the level of expertise that Director Nen and others have with regard to what the Office of Human Rights does, but to have a better understanding of what we can do as we reach out to the communities in which we're involved. And I would welcome somebody else to work with me in this capacity. And so, and there may be some from the new commissioners that will be coming on who would be wanting to be involved in this committee. Their resumes are just as good as the rest of ours in terms of different communities that we could reach out to. But I'd be curious to hear from others as to what they think the outreach committee could be doing.
Chair, could I chime in for a minute?
Yes, please. And let me just also recognize Commissioner Quinn would like to speak, but Director Khan, go ahead.
Yeah, I think, I'm sorry, I apologize. I see that Commissioner Quinn has had her hand up. So why don't we let Commissioner Quinn chime in and I'll make my comment about, I just wanted to comment on Commissioner Mulhauser's comment about OHR's expectations of the outreach committee. So I just want to reemphasize what that is in a moment. But Commissioner Quinn, did you want to chime in now, or would you like to wait for me to make that comment?
Oh, I'll wait for your comment.
Okay, great. So I just want to clarify that, OHR doesn't have any specific expectations for the outreach committee of the commission. What we would like to do is support the commission and its intention to engage in outreach, right? We want to support the commission in ensuring that you have all of the tools and resources necessary to engage in outreach. But for Commissioner Mulhauser and some of the other veteran commissioners know, OHR does have an entire team of outreach folks who educate the public, not only about OHR, but about the commission. And ever since, I've been in the seat, I will tell you, it's been an additional emphasis of mine to ensure that the public understands what I call the bifurcated process that is under the Human Rights Act, that it's not just the OHR investigation that people know about, but that people should also know about what happens after that investigation process, where there's a probable cause finding, and it goes to the commission for a hearing and then the tribunal and a final decision. So that is OHR's role, is to provide education to the communities, but by extension also support the commission in its intention and desire to engage in outreach. So I hope that's clear, that there is no specific ask or expectations from OHR of the commission in doing outreach, but that we want to be supportive and provide the commission with the necessary tools and resources so that it'll enable you to do the best you can about the process. But as Chair Azawa has said, it is mostly about putting the faces behind the commission and teaching the community about the existence of the commission and what it is that you do, and hopefully inspire others to get involved. But I think that's really the gist of the committee. But thank you for that opportunity, Chair.
Thank you so much. And Commissioner Quinn, please go ahead.
Yes. Well, I'm glad I waited. We got a little bit more context. I will renew something that I know I've shared with the committee before, which is that I think one of the ways we can support the work that our OHR is already doing is by making presentations before our own ANCs and civic associations. My guess is that each commissioner likely lives in a different ANC and in a different area for a civic association or a citizens association, whichever you have. That to me sounds like really low hanging fruit. The other opportunity that I believe I have mentioned in the past is coordinating with local main streets, like where I am, we have North Capitol Main Street. And this kind of speaks to something that I know that we have discussed in the past, which is the importance of reaching out to people who are making decisions that might impact people in terms of their human rights. So business owners who may be less familiar than we would like for them to be with what their obligations are and what their employees' rights are, to kind of attack this on the front end as opposed to trying to make someone on the back end aware that you've been violated or you have a potential claim. Let's get ahead of this. And I think both of those suggestions are ones where we could coordinate with OHR, because given what the director just said, my guess is that they already have a route of visiting ANCs and civic associations. And it might be a good idea to figure out, if we can be in better communication about when they are coming to which civic association. So if they're coming to mine, I absolutely would want to be there. At my ANC, all of that, and perhaps maybe it's better for us to coordinate with them and we all go together. Maybe it's a better use of resources if we tell them, hey, we've got these, and we'll let you know as soon as we've been on the agenda for these, and you can cross it off your list for this year or this 2-year cycle, however often you try to get there. But I think that those are some low-hanging fruit items that we could prepare to launch in the fall. Most ANCs and civic associations are either going to be off for July and August, but at least August. So there's a little bit of buffer time there. And then to the committee chairs solicitation, I'm happy to help in any way you see fit. You've been a pleasure to work with, so whatever you ask me to do, I'm in.
Thank you so much for the suggestions, and I vividly recall you made those suggestions earlier. So you're being very, very consistent about the role of the outreach committee. I have also heard the outreach committee discuss reaching out to PTA associations that's in their own schools. So if your kids go to school and if you're involved in the school's PTA, you should show up and talk about human rights. Another way to reach out to the youth through their parents. That was another suggestion that I heard. I heard suggestions about going out to libraries, public libraries, and holding just a small session on what your rights are under the DC Human Rights Act. I have heard all of these things. It's just that I will be very frank. Nothing happened. Yeah, and nothing happened in part, perhaps, because people felt that they needed to get trained in order to be able to stand up in front of others to talk about DC Human Rights Act. Now, if that is the case, we will certainly have the opportunity to be trained in October. And hopefully that will give us a level of confidence to boost our appearances at these places, which I think are more than happy to have outside speakers appear and talk about how other people can be helped. I went to my particular ANC, this is now pre-COVID, and I was welcomed very much by the ANC to make a very quick presentation on the DC Human Rights Act and the role of the commission. And I got asked some tough questions. And some of the questions were so interesting, but I didn't know the answers to. And I just said, I didn't know, I will look it up and get back. And I think that is perfectly okay. And again, we're not there to answer any legal questions or to provide legal advice. That is the last thing we should be doing, right? To interfere with the process that OHR will go through. So again, the training perhaps will give us some skill sets to figure out how to respond to these questions appropriately without compromising ourselves. But I think the key, so anyway, I do appreciate Commissioner Quinn's suggestions. I would love to be able to see us turn it into something that's systematic, right? For us to first of all recognize which ANCs we would like to visit, and to do this either alone or together, or with somebody from OHR. I think that that is a tremendous suggestion. So we just need to make it happen. And I guess the question is, how do we make it happen? Yeah,
maybe the lower hanging fruit is for those of us on the committee, and I suppose anyone who's willing to do so, to compile a list of our ANCs and of our civic associations and submit that to the appropriate person in OHR to find out, one, have they been there recently? I mean, I know for a fact they haven't been to the Bloomingdale Civic Association in the last 2 years. So I can cross that off the list, but I don't know about my ANCs. But that's a way we can move the ball forward. Let's first find out, has someone been there last night? And if not, then we can go to the next step of reaching out to the appropriate persons in those organizations to get on their agendas.
One possibility is that I can create a Google sheet for the committee to make a list of the organizations and the ANCs and the libraries and so forth, to which we'd be willing to do some outreach presentations. And that could be a start to think about where we could be making these presentations. There are so many groups in DC that need to know about this, and that what we would be able to do as commissioners is to augment the kind of training that OHR does for the agencies. And so I get the feeling that folks think that we should have been doing it already, but as committee members, we kind of were waiting for an opportunity to get. We've been calling it training, but maybe it's not training. It's more sort of a clearer sense of what OHR would hope that we'd be able to do. So I think that this conversation is helpful, and looking forward to going forward.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And if anybody would like to be working alongside Commissioner Mulhauser, please let her know. She will welcome additional support in what she is doing in that committee. Any other discussions before I close this one? Okay, I don't see any hands. So let me see if Commissioner Baldwin, who is the new chair of the Rules Committee, if he would like to say anything at all at this point, or whether he would like to wait till September.
I can say something, but it would be very brief, which is we are putting out a call. It seems to be a theme tonight. We are putting out a call for new Rules Committee members. And we will establish some next steps that we will mention at our September meeting. But please, if you have additional time or interest, I understand that all of us are working people, so the additional time may be scarce. But yeah, we're trying to plan the next steps with the rules. So please let me know. Shoot me an email if you have my number. If you don't have my number, I can provide it. We could get on the phone. But yeah, we're just looking for more help.
And help may be forthcoming with the addition of the 3 new commissioners in the fall. So we keep our fingers crossed. I believe at least 1, if not 2 of them. Two are lawyers, right? Yeah, exactly. And not that we need all lawyers in the committee, but this one, the legal background might be helpful. Not to discourage anybody else, but okay. So with that, I think we are done with the committee reports, and I move to the next agenda item. Does anybody have any announcements? Okay, I don't see any hand here. So we now move to the next agenda item, which is public comment. tonight we have somebody who would like to make a public comment. This is Mr. Richard Schertzer. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. And Mr. Schertzer, if you are still online, you have, yes, thank you. Welcome. And you have 3 minutes to make your comment. And you may start now. Thank you.
Could I record this on my end so I could have it for record?
As you may have heard, this proceeding is recorded and it's made public.
Okay.
So,
Okay. I just had this proposal that I wanted the DC Human Rights Office to know. I was going to discuss the disparaging inequalities that sex workers in and outside of DC have gone through. Many people in the adult industry have been discriminated against because of their adult work. 46% of adult workers have been restricted on sites like PayPal, Cash App, and Venmo. 36% have lost at least one bank account, and half of them have been denied a loan because of their work. According to the 2022 Free Speech Coalition survey, which I was hoping to do this and tell you by normalizing sex work in communities. And sex workers find it harder each day to retain their money in their bank accounts. MasterCard has made it harder for said sex workers because they now require that sites like OnlyFans obtain copies of age verification. And the issue is that if those records were infiltrated, the information could be blasted through the dark web, and it would make adult performers vulnerable to fraudsters and blackmail artists, as per a testimony of one of the sex workers. And I understand that in some cases there have been sex trafficking laws like FOSTA SESTA that have and they've been combating sex trafficking. But in all honesty, that's only hurt legitimate and honest sex workers, as the act has limited a legitimate sex worker's ability to advertise. And honestly, as long as the participants of said sex work are of age and there are no minors or animals involved, I don't believe that these people should be penalized for doing work that supports themselves and their families. And the fact that many banks are quick to terminate these people's accounts and deny them loans because of their work is, I do believe, a violation of the DC Human Rights Act, as sources of income are protected under said act, which would potentially include sex work.
are you finished, Mr. Schertzer?
Yeah, I'm finished.
Okay, thank you very much for that input, and it is noted. And with that, unless anybody else would like to say anything, I would like to propose that this meeting is adjourned. Is there a second? Commissioner Clymer.
Thank you, Chair Zawa. No, I just wanted to thank Mr. Schertzer for his comments on sex work. I do believe that sex workers, in particular transgender sex workers, are under enormous attack right now. And there is not enough understood about the research about decriminalization and I would say the ways in which sex workers constantly face discrimination and threats to their well-being because of that. So I do appreciate Mr. Schertzer for bringing this up. In the chat, I'm going to include a report from the ACLU about all the empirical research that's been done about this. It's very good. And that is all I had for y'all.
Thank you for that.
And where could I find this on YouTube, Miss? To use for record?
Mr. Schertzer,
It's in the chat.
it's in the chat. Yeah, it's just been posted, and I believe you have access to that.
Right. I was just, because I told Miss Pearson, the chief judge, that I was working on a documentary to normalize sex work.
Yes, thank you very much. That is noted. So with that, I propose that we adjourn this meeting unless there is anything else. Is there a second to adjourn?
Second.
Second.
Thank you. So everybody have a very good and safe summer. By the time we see each other in September, we'll have the award winners and we'll be announcing those. So have a good summer. Take care. Thank you.
Take care, folks. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Take
Well,
care.
Thank you.
Miss,
I'm sorry, Mr. Schertzer, were you asking where you can find the live stream?
yeah, where I can find the
of
live
this?
stream. Yes.
All right, so if you look on, you know what, I will email you the link, but it's on the notice that was published in the DC Register and the notice that's on our website.
Yeah.
That notice has the YouTube link on it as well,
Okay.
but I'll email it to you.
Yes, please do that, ma'am. I would appreciate that.
Okay,
Thank you.
no problem.
All right. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, everybody. Bye.